Thank you so much for joining me on the way forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and I am very pleased to be joined by Cheryl Sutton. If the name is familiar, that's because her husband has to put up with me on the Good Morning Show, Will Sutton. And so, Cheryl is the founder and director of Art and Culture on Purpose. She is a curator, a consultant, a dealer. She is also a collector and an advocate of art. And so, Will and I just had this conversation one day, just offhandedly, where he talked about the work that you're doing in art. And he talked about how much you advocate. And I said, it would be great to have a conversation on the way forward about how we can better support Black art.
Hmm.
And so you sound like the perfect person to talk to. I'm going to say you are the perfect person to talk to, Cheryl. How are you?
I so appreciate that. I just first have to thank God and you and your station and your audience for this opportunity to speak to you because it is a passion of mine. It's been a passion for decades, and it's something I really think is important for people to understand and know the value and the purpose of art. And so that's why my company is called Art and Culture on Purpose because there is a purpose to it. And my hope is that after hearing a little bit from me, people will understand and appreciate that purpose even more.
So let's start with that purpose. What even got you into art so much in the first place?
Well, yeah, I began early in life. As a child, I became interested. I enjoyed creating. Um, I actually even now believe that the act of creation is a place where you are closest to God. So it's even more special because he was a creator and we are creators. And so I think that we always need to be plugged into that creative side of ourselves and appreciate the creativities of others. I used to draw and tell stories as an elementary student, and with my artwork, I received encouragement and praise. I would be illustrating current events, history, classroom subjects, and art and history were my favorite subjects. So that encouragement led to my continuing learning and even through high school and college, I learned even more the value and the importance of art and history and graduate school, and also how it documents our history. So that was, it was a perfect blend of interest for me. And if you spend any time in museums and institutions of learning, you can see and know our history and culture through the works of art that have been created and collected. These institutions, these museums and schools and are our nation's treasure houses. So we have to understand that the information that is in them are our treasures, our nation's treasures. And so we need to be part of creating them and supporting them because they are telling our story. And actually, even now, as our treasure houses are being attacked, we need to be more engaged and involved in protecting and preserving them.
Yeah. Is there a type of art that you gravitate to?
Well, I'm specifically my in interested in African American art. I mean, that is clearly one of the most undervalued, but also most important to our community because it tells our story. Um, I mean, it's art actually predates recorded history in many ways. If you look back to the cave paintings, I think prehistory, um, those records, those paintings told the story of people. And so it's important to understand just how valuable, that information is. So uh, I think that we all have to have some appreciation, more appreciation of its value.
I find it refreshing that you say that as you were growing up, you were encouraged when it came to art.
Mm.
But unfortunately, there are a lot of kids, especially Black kids, who can't tell the same story. So you have these folks who are looking at their kids are doing their art, and the parents are saying, "There's no money in that. What are you going to do?" And then, God forbid, if the kid says, "I'm going to major in art."
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
how do you respond to that argument that people make that "quote unquote" there's no money in it, and so why even bother to do something like major in it in college?
Well, I have to disagree. There certainly is money in art. We see in the news that a single painting fetched $450 million. A picture painting depicting Christ. And we also have to note that kings, queens, billionaires, and people of wealth and power that have an understanding of the value of art and culture have it on their mind because they know its value. And so even if our parents or others, are not as aware, those children can take that information to their family, and we as a people can know and understand more. One of the reasons why it is being attacked now is because the people in power know its value. And so we have to learn and invest in that culture and in that history, because it is something that there is money, both financial wealth and cultural wealth. And those two are come together, and that's what people of power and money know, and so that's why they're after it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I think we tend to miss with this. I mean, if there weren't so much value, you wouldn't have so many people who would try to put so many restrictions on it. And speaking of that, you alluded to this earlier, especially with your love of history. We often hear that art tells stories that history might not necessarily tell, or the history books, I should say, might not tell. What comes to mind for me are the Amistad murals at Talladega College. Where
Mm-hmm.
there's this great conversation to be had. So, what example comes to you, or what is it about art that develops our minds in such a way?
Well, that tells those murals tell the story of that history. That you receive information, you learn not only from what you read, but what you see. All we have five senses that take in information, and one is not more important than the other. What we see all around us impacts us every day, and we have to be very conscious and purposeful in what we are looking at, what we are seeing, what we are taking in. Um, and that's how you grow and how you know the truth of what is real and important. I think that I mean, like I go back to the cave paintings, 17,000 years ago. Those were recorded history of the existence of people and civilization on this earth. And when you think about Western art, Michelangelo, which I think every school child learns about. Uh, they called the cave paintings the Sistine Chapel for prehistory, and then the Sistine Chapel itself was created. The artwork was created because it told stories, because people back then couldn't read. Average people could not read. And so they were telling stories, and the artwork was telling stories that weren't being told in the history books, because people weren't able to read. And so, over and over again, the importance and value of art can be seen if you study history, if you look around you. I've had the wonderful opportunity since being here to take a walking art tour around to see the art that's just in the buildings, the symbols, the African symbols that were planted by the people of this community that built this place, um, created these amazing buildings and structures, and in those images in those structures are symbols of African history and culture. But we have to look around and see and know to be able to uh, appreciate and um, preserve, protect, and care about them. And we have to collect them. That's what my mission is to make not only the value of the work that's in our nation's treasure houses available to us, because as we see, we can't always count on those treasure houses to to keep all of our culture. We have to begin by bringing that culture and that art into our home, and making sure that our homes are the treasure houses that give the information that we want to pass on to generations. One of the biggest collectors of African American art began his collection. He has over 700. This is the Kinsey family. They have
Mm-hmm.
over 700 items in their collection, and they began it because they saw that their son was not receiving the education and the history that was important for them to share with him. That wasn't being promoted, and that wasn't being shared with him. And so that's part of what I try to do is offer more information and opportunity to look and see and find this work that is of great value right under our noses and in our community.
Mhm. You're listening to The Way Forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to Cheryl Sutton. She's the founder and director of Art and Culture on Purpose. She's a curator, a consultant, a dealer, a collector, and also an advocate. And we're talking about the value of art, and especially African and African American art. And so that brings me to this thing that I've always wondered about. Um, in the Black community, we pour so much passion, it seems, into art. What is it about Black folks and our connection to art that you think is so strong?
In addition to being a way to beautify and make our environment um, more of a place to feed our souls and spirits, it is something that we naturally have an instinct to do. Um, and given that we are uh, abundantly gifted, and what we don't seem to have is the full appreciation of it that the rest of the world has. And so that's kind of, again, my soapbox is to really, try to share that and stress the importance of that, and for us to, get to see and know more of what we have to offer, appreciate what we have to offer, and actually consider purchasing. And because there are ways to purchase, um, there are payment plans that artists and dealers and uh, make available. There's bartering that happens. One of the things I have been talking to artists after you told me what you were interested in hearing about, of what their needs are to support them. Um, I had one artist say, I need some shelves. And another one, just come out and support. This That was I.O. Scott. I don't know if you know of the Scott family and the legacy that they have created in this community. But he was saying, that's a simple thing. I spoke to several artists, and actually, one of the things that I'm planning to do is provide a list of needs like that different artists tell me about, and make that available. My church is doing days of service ahead, and so I've offered to give them a list of places in our community, artists and cultural institutions that need help. And that's something I'll be doing in the coming days. I also created an Instagram page called Friends of African and African American Art and Culture. It's Friends of 4AC on Instagram. And that too will be a place where I will be posting and making information available on how to support various artists. I started regular walks that I do of the sculpture garden across the street from me, of the African American art in the sculpture garden, just so people can see, our contributions. So there are ways. There are a lot of things that we can do, but again, I don't want to discount the value of supporting it, bringing it into your homes, and making your own treasure houses, both those that what's in your home and also in your community, supporting the institutions that are about keeping our culture so that we can be responsible for telling the stories and we can be responsible for keeping our treasures. I've talked to artists, for throughout my career, and um, many of them say that 90% of their collectors do not look like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
90%. So I think we can do better. And I encourage us to, understand the value, know the value, um, and really and know, like the rich and powerful know, that it is something worth investing in. So, um, that's probably the bottom line, the underlying, um, I guess, spirit of the message that I wanted to convey today. Um, but there are going to be many other ways. Like I said, making a bookshelf. If barter. If you have accounting skills, if you have, I mean, there are ways for you to barter, collect the art, and keep and make that treasure. So we all have gifts to share, and I think sharing with each other in ways that build us all up and keep our culture and our power and our wealth within our
Mhm.
community, our financial and our cultural wealth in our community is just very important.
Let's talk very quickly about the business side. What are some of the challenges or some of the other challenges that Black artists face on the business side of it?
Well, I guess that probably one of the last quotes I got from an artist, went back to the people understanding the value, and um, how when they the artist ask for the price of something, that it's not devalued and somebody offers less than what it's worth, because it's worth more than what they can what they're even asking. I mean, that's how important, that's how valuable it is, and that's why the rich and powerful are trying to collect it and take it. Um, you know, African American art has increased, the value has increased exponentially um, over the last several decades. And that's because the rich and powerful are collecting it up and keeping it for themselves. And as New Orleans knows, that's what people do. They come and want to um, take the culture with them. They come
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
come down, and they're like, "Oh, this is fabulous! This is beautiful." They want to take it with them, and New Orleans is a tourist city, and so people do come in to gain the wealth that they see here, and we just have to make sure that we keep some for our keep some for ourselves. And so that's the business, is just understanding, the value, um, and helping the artists and the institutions create the work, um, preserve the work in whatever way we can. Stella Jones, I talked to her. She has a gallery that's been here supporting the artists for decades as well. I think it's 30 years now. Um, and she says, do what you can do, but this is just so important. And our business is really needing those people who will do what they can do, because it's more than um, just a pretty picture on the wall. If you're going to put anything on your wall, put something that's both valuable culturally and financially. I do classes and have done teaching on how to invest wisely. The folks that do buy art, um, and particularly the rich and powerful, they are knowledgeable about what is valuable. They're making investments. So I do encourage people to think about it as an investment of both cultural and financial wealth.
I'm thinking I'm thinking about one institution, a university that will remain nameless, but beloved to be. And I remember walking through the administration one day, and there were these blank walls.
Mm,
And I just kept asking, can we please put some art up here? Can we please? I know we have alumni who do art. Can we buy some art from them and put
hmm.
them on these walls? Because that just gives us one more thing to brag about this institution. And so,
Yeah.
as you were saying that, and I was thinking about supporting, I'm just thinking about how universities can do something like support their alumni by
Right.
buying art and by helping people understand how these alumni fit into their ecosystem. So, besides making purchases, besides bartering services, what else can everyday people do to be better supportive of both Black art and Black artists?
Coming out to the events, just educating your eye to seeing it and knowing it. There are museum exhibitions, there are tours, as I said. Um, uh, the artists are encouraged, um, like I was as a child. Um, and we all are when people are out to will take the time and spend the time to encourage the creation, and to keep creating. One
Mhm.
of the things that's happening here is that the cost of living has gone up, and in New Orleans particularly, it is the art and culture that bring people here. It's tourism is the largest, um, I guess, moneymaker in this state. And so, given that, I think the people of this city, this state, uh, must consider, investing in that to keep this community as alive and well, because it is that art and culture that brings people here. Um, so supporting it, being out not only when there's a big event, but the small events. That's a simple way. And again, learnings, but understanding. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is to really know and understand just how valuable it is, because everybody else knows it. And
Yes.
that's why they come. So I think that we all individually have to put in that effort, and consider what we can do where we are. I'm also, as I make the list, I'm going to try to um, put it by neighborhood, so that people can serve right in their neighborhood, learn right in their neighborhood, to make it as easy as possible. But all good things require some work and some effort, and so I want to make it easy. But I think that hopefully, if you begin to know and understand the treasures, you will find it on your own and find your way on your own.
Cheryl, if people want to know more about you, how can they find out more about you? And what's that Instagram handle one more time?
It's Friends of 4AC, so Friends of African and African American Art and Culture. That's the Instagram. I have also, my email is art and culture on purpose at Gmail. And so those are probably the best ways to reach me. Um, I also have, and through those, appointments can be made, and plans to get together. I'm going to be posting regularly events that will be happening around town where people can hopefully have one good place to find out where things are happening, when, and hopefully it will also be a place where people will share what they know, because it's all about us doing it together. This is something that we do for ourselves, but we do it for each other. And that's, I think, what will make us stronger, more powerful, and more engaged in building and creating the cultural and economic wealth of our community.
Cheryl Sutton is the founder and director of Art and Culture on Purpose. Thank you so much for joining me on The Way Forward.
Thank you again for having me.